Well, hello and welcome to another episode of More Perfect Marketing. I'm going to go on a rant for a moment. By the way, my name is David Baer, in case you don't know who I am. And you probably don't, because hopefully our guest has shared this podcast with you and you're hearing me for the first time and hopefully not the last time. We'll see. Anyway, let me go on a rant. And the rant is I really, really get annoyed by people who tell me how busy they are. And they wear that as like a badge of honor. The fact that they have made so much progress and been so productive with their day and worked so many hours should make me think that they're just awesome people, particularly awesome professionals. And I don't prescribe to this. In fact, I told my business partner years ago when we first started working together, I'd love to transform our business into something where I am making as much impact on my clients and as much money from my clients as possible and working as little as possible. And he kind of looked at me cross-eyed, not knowing what I was talking about. But if you're curious what I'm talking about, hopefully today's guest is going to illuminate, because I think she agrees with a little bit of what I've just shared. So let's welcome Mickey Anderson. Mickey, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, David.
So I saw you reacting to what I just put out there, and I'm curious to hear your take on it.
You know, I am a firm believer that hard work is only a tiny portion of what actually generates success and happiness in our lives. And a lot of times, the harder you work, the less happy you are. Uh, and the busier you are, the less profitable you are as well. And I think it's a big misnomer. You see all this like success advice thrown at you time and time again. Have miracle mornings, work hard all day long, hustle, have a side hustle, do all of these things. And then one day you'll wake up and maybe you'll be successful. But the truth is, most of us never get to that one day. And if we do, most of us have a heart attack the following day. And so life is meant to be lived and enjoyed. And if you have a business, it's not a vehicle for you to work hard. It's a vehicle for you to achieve your goals and live the life you want. And that should be able to start today. I don't think you need to work incredibly hard to achieve whatever level of success you desire and deserve.
Yeah, I really appreciate that sentiment, and I think we don't all necessarily start our professional lives thinking that way. I wish more people did. I certainly was out there hustling for a while, and I know you describe yourself as somebody who was as well. So sort of what's that background, and how did you come to the realization that maybe things should change?
You know, it's funny. I grew up in a high performance family. My father was the CEO of a large enterprise manufacturing industry. My mom was a nurse, and both were incredible athletes. And so my brother and I grew up as incredible athletes and hard workers with great work ethic, and we were constantly busy and constantly chasing the next thing. And as much as I admired my parents and their work ethic and their achievements, we didn't have a heck of a lot of time to spend together. And when we did, most of us were exhausted. Or there was some sort of an event or a sporting event that we were attending and someone was competing, and so it was high stress the entire time. And much later in my life, I realized that that's not the most enjoyable way to pursue excellence. You can pursue mastery, you can pursue excellence and still enjoy yourself. I think recovery and rest are a huge part of that. And it took me all the way up until I was on maternity leave with my daughter, burnt out, trying to get back into some sort of a workflow, but it seemed to not matter how hard I worked or what I accomplished. I could never keep up, and I always felt like I wasn't doing enough. Until finally one day I broke and said, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living this life where I'm constantly busy and never making any progress or moving. And so I stripped it all down and got to the core of, what do I really want my day to look like? What am I truly working for? And is there a way to get both of those things in alignment so that I'm not super busy and actually making progress and feeling like I'm working towards those things and achieving those things on the daily basis? So it took a long time and a lot of lessons, but now thankfully I'm at a place where I feel like I have great harmony between my work life and my home life. My husband's in the military and he is gone most of the time. And so I play solo parent slash business owner a lot. And finding that balance can be challenging, but often it's a reminder of what feels urgent, what has a deadline, isn't always truly important or a priority. And it's just those daily check ins of, if I can do one thing today, what is that one thing that needs to get done? Everything else can be a bonus, and make that progress that priority instead of letting the busy work keep you busy and stuck.
So if I'm reading correctly, you were running your own agency, supporting businesses, and probably had a lot of things up in the air. I don't know if you had a team that you were managing as well, things like that. And you've obviously transitioned to something different in terms of the structure in order to be able to realize the benefits of deprioritizing some things and focusing on the things that matter. So what how did that transition work?
In the marketing world, I think being an agency owner, leading a team is kind of the traditional benchmark of success. You really made it when you've got a team and you're supporting businesses and this is your business structure. And I was doing that and I did not feel successful, nor did I feel happy. I felt like I followed the traditional path that most marketers follow. And I ended up in a place where I was very unhappy. The demands of the work were just too much. I couldn't keep up. And I was doing a mediocre job at everything. And as much as I like to think that I'm a great leader and a great business owner, it just didn't feel right. And so I came to this place where I had to really look deep down within myself and think, what does success look like for me? Not for everyone else. If I ditch everyone else's expectations and needs and wants for my life, what do I really want? You know what? I love working by myself or with a small team. I love having that personal touch with clients. I love being able to shut her down and not think about projects on the go. And I don't really care if I grow a big team or a big agency and tackle everything. I'd rather do the one thing that I love doing and do it really, really well. And so I completely transformed and left agency life behind and started my consultancy.
That's excellent, and we share that path, by the way. This is instructive, I hope, for our listeners. Among our listeners, we have sort of two different groups: a lot of marketers and a lot of agency owners, but there are also a lot of professional service providers who follow a very similar model in a lot of their businesses and have the ability to sort of rethink and reposition themselves as well. And that's a group that you do a lot of work with. And so I imagine that, knowing the stuff that you tend to emphasize in the marketing around your offer, you're probably, finding that this message is resonating with people in that services, professional services world.
Yeah, absolutely. I work with a lot of people in the wellness industry as well. So, clinic owners and professionals, naturopaths and chiropractors who build up clinics because that's what is they're told to do, right? That's the path. And then they realize that I never wanted to run a business like this. I love serving patients or clients and I want someone else to build the structure. And it doesn't make you less successful to realize that or to follow that path. It's all about you and defining what makes sense for you. And it absolutely resonates because everyone that I work with, it starts out really busy, really exhausted, and not really making the progress that they want to be making.
So I'm curious a little bit more, sort of digging deeper into what's the path from one to the other, right? How do you get from A to B? And as I go through the website and some of the stuff that you offer, I remember that somewhere on the site, I think if I scroll all the way to the bottom, there's the create less content, convert more prospects, right? So this is an idea that I love, but you're not going to start doing something dramatically different tomorrow in your business and suddenly realize this. What's the path? What's the roadmap?
Yeah, it starts off, as I mentioned, understanding and defining what success means to you. How do you want to live your life? What do you want your day to look like? What are your real true goals outside of everyone else's? And then it's really about tapping into your zone of genius, as I like to call it. I'm a huge fan of the book The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and I think it's a great tool that many business owners and agency owners can use and leverage to identify. Most of the time, we're really good at a lot of stuff. We're excellent at tons of things, But when we do them and spend our time doing those things, part of our soul kind of dies, right? You feel like you're withering away in the excellence and you never get to do the things you're truly passionate about. So when you can identify that unique genius that you have, the thing that you like stops time when you do it, that you feel just fulfills you and energizes you, the goal ultimately needs to be spending as much time as possible doing that thing and delegating out or giving away the rest. Because when you spend time in your zone of excellence, you're really holding yourself back from that exponential leap and growth. So it starts off with stripping down, right? Identifying, okay, in this moment, what do I really want to be working on? What am I amazing at that no one else can do? And then how do I get this other stuff off of me? Whether it's through automations, through delegation, through outsourcing, whatever path it is, and start there. And it's really a strip down to the core so that you can be working on the things you need to and then identify what needs to be done by who or by what.
So I've had enough of these conversations with business owners to know that there's two areas you just talked about: delegation, automation, where we get pushback, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, others can't do it the way I do, as well as I do. They don't have the experience, the insights, etc. And I'm curious how you react or respond to that. And similarly, automation, right? Automation is really all about, well, it's not going to be as genuine, or it's not going to be as good, or it's not going to be as insightful, or it's not going to really get into the specificity of their situation because I need to personalize everything.
You know, I love it when I get that pushback because it opens up a lot of vulnerabilities in business owners. Most of the time, when we cling to needing to control the way things are done, even if they're not important things, it highlights a fear. It highlights an insecurity. If I'm not in control, then what? And most of the time, it's a fear of failure, or it's a fear of not being enough to other people, not being enough in general. And that's a conversation that sometimes needs to go to someone else, another professional, obviously, to deal with it. But it's a great conversation to have, because if you can't let go of the unimportant things in your life, how are you going to spend enough time doing the important things? And with care, with, you know, real focus, it's really easy to turn automations into really thoughtful, you know, surprise and delight moments where the extra touch has been taken. It doesn't have to be cold, but a lot of them haven't experienced that either. And so you can give them examples and show them what care and thoughtfulness and automation can look like, right? What that experience can be for a client, but also in terms of delegation, you get to be a mentor. Instead of being a controller, you now get to mentor someone else and let them bring their unique touch, which is probably being limited because they want to be you instead of an amazing version of them. And that conversation can take a little while, but usually it turns around. And when we start focusing on the things they need to be doing and want to be doing, it becomes easier and easier to let go of the rest.
You know, you're talking about a bunch of stuff that when I made this transition from being a marketing agency owner to a consultant, I didn't realize I was going to get into this territory. But we also, you know, play the role of therapists sometimes, and you know, coach, which is a term that is way overused, but I think often I find myself filling that role as well. One of the things that we put into the consulting process that we follow is we start things off with a core values assessment with the business owner, because it really helps address a lot of the things that you're talking about, and it gives us the ability to assess the situation more fully, right? It's not just about what's going on in the business, but it's also what's going on inside that individual whose business this is. And I'm curious how you tend to approach this, because you need to discover these things at some point in the relationship with the client as well.
You know, I love that you mentioned core values, and I listened to your most recent episode on the podcast where you really dove into core values as well. And I think it's an important conversation because we all have values. Your clients have values that are important to them, and oftentimes those values come into play when they're selecting who they want to work with. And if it's not clear that there's an alignment in values, they may choose someone else, or they may not choose to work with anyone and wait. And neither of those options is good for you. I think one of the things you can do when you look at your business, instead of looking at it like your baby or a separate entity, it's oftentimes understanding that your business is not just this vessel. It's like a person. It has its own soul, its own existence, its own character, and it doesn't have to be you. It can be separate from you, especially if you want to grow a team and you're afraid of being the person, right? That's often a fear that I hear a lot. I don't want to be the person. I want to scale. That's okay. You can still do that, but you need to understand who your business is, how they build relationships with other people, what's important, what the mission is, what the values are, the feel, the touch, and that will really help you understand what's important and what's not.
Yeah. No, that's all right. I do want to talk a little bit sort of into next steps here because once we sort of figure out what the business wants or what the person wants because we're talking about working with people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make some decisions about, okay, what are you going to do, what are the changes you're going to make, and that's when obviously the marketing stuff comes into play. So I want to jump back to the thing that I referenced on your website earlier because I think it's a really good example of how to think quite differently about approaching marketing. So can you talk about sort of your theory behind what you do marketing wise and
Yeah.
how to go about it?
Absolutely. With small and micro business owners in particular who are single or small teams, they don't have a ton of capacity to do more. But that's often what's prescribed. You need more content, more ads, more everything. But it's not super feasible, and more doesn't necessarily serve the business owner or the client. Oftentimes it's about simplicity. So, how can we scale it back and do less, but do it way better? How can we find that thing that is really going to help our clients and amplify it? So, with create less content, convert more prospects, that's a great example. I work you through how to create 6 core pieces of content that are going to walk your customers through the journey of customer awareness. 6 pieces, that's it. And you can leave it at that. You can repurpose those. But if you create those 6 pieces, you've covered your basis. Instead of trying to throw tons of information and content out there, if you create these 6 pieces, you're going to help your customers understand who you are, what you do, what makes you different, why they should choose you, why now is the time to choose, and what to do to get started.
Okay. Um, so you got these core pieces of content, but you use the word core, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's more, I'm assuming, that gets built on top of that
Over time.
over
So
time. Okay.
at first it's when we're talking about content marketing in particular, I have my own little philosophy. So there's 2 categories of content that you can create for your business. There's core content, which is the heart of your content. It's related to your products and services. It's your unique value proposition or your unique way of doing what you do, right? Your processes. And then there's what I like to call hygiene content. And I took the term, it's coined by a conversion copywriter named Ashlyn Carter. And hygiene content, it's kind of like brushing your teeth. So, core content is that every 6-month dental cleaning. It's powerful, it's jam packed, it's going to make a huge difference. Hygiene content is the stuff you put out that is relevant to your customer. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's insightful, it's value driven, but it doesn't take a ton of time to produce. And it just keeps you relevant in your customer's mind. So the core content is really important. It's the quality. And then when you're looking to increase quantity, you can fill in the gaps with hygiene content.
All right. You used a term that is industry jargon that I want to go back to and clarify the meaning and how it's different from other similar activities. So you mentioned a conversion copywriter. You
Yes.
you use that title for yourself
Yes,
or
I am a
as
conversion
well.
copywriter.
And so there's lots of different types of writing out there. There's the content that goes out on social media or on a blog. There is the sales copy that might show up in email forms or sales pages or video sales letters. What is conversion copywriting?
So, conversion copywriting, you're creating copy to achieve a specific goal. You want the customer to take an action. right? Whether it's to download your lead generator, whether it's to buy your offer or to join your club or whatever it is that you want. So conversion copy is about influencing the reader to take action. There's content writing or content copy, which is about just delivering value and engaging and building relationships. And so when I write copy for a client, I'm trying to get them to do one specific thing.
And so that I assume that that's sort of part of the scaling down is to figure out, okay, what is the path that we want to bring somebody through,
Yes.
and then you build that system.
You got it. Yeah, the customer journey, right? Most marketers understand this, and a lot of business owners do too, but I think it's sometimes oversimplified, sometimes overdone. It's really just how are we taking our customers from becoming aware of who we are to becoming loyal raving fans? And most of the time, business owners start from awareness. They're like, how do I get more eyes on my business? But I'll be honest, of all of the businesses I've worked with, none of them had a problem with leads. None of them didn't have enough leads. The problem was they weren't converting or selling the leads they had. If they could increase that conversion rate or that sales rate by even 10%, it would transform their business. And yet we all start here in awareness. Mm-hmm. So the process I like to do is reverse engineer it from the point of sale. So start at the sale. What made the person buy? And then how did they find you before that? What did they do to engage with you? And if you can reverse engineer and inform the step in front, I found it's far more successful and there's a lot less wasted stuff.
Yeah, I love. By the way, every answer to any question I ask, it sounds like you're a member of my team because you're saying exactly what we would say to somebody. The way I like to talk about it is, what does somebody need to believe before they're ready to move on to the next step? And so then that's what we build, is the thing to get them to sign on to that, to indoctrinate them around this belief. And
I totally agree. Yep.
All right. I see a lot of businesses out there, and they're some of them, as you said, sort of have this stuff dialed in a little bit more than others. But in what is the typical state of a business that you tend to encounter, and where are they getting it wrong? Where are they getting it right at the moment?
Yeah, most of the businesses that start working with me are very busy, serving their clients, doing the things, and trying to manage what they've got. And they have the goal to grow, but they have no capacity or space to do so. And without making room, they can't do more. And so what I find is there's some marketing activities taking place, emails go out, social posts go out, but it's very scattered. There's no real goal to any of it. It's just put out there. I like to use the random acts of marketing, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on, but no real plan, no real growth goals either. Nothing really written down. How much do we want to grow and by when? And what are we going to do to make that happen? How are we going to check in and track progress? And that's really the first step, or the foundation of coming up with your marketing plan, understanding what's going to be the next step for you. Is where do you want to go specifically? What do we think will get us there? And let's start testing and trying. But we got to make space first to be able to have the room to do that stuff.
Yeah, I see that random acts of marketing stuff. I've done it myself, and I think most marketers are cobbler's children syndrome,
It's so true.
where we don't do it as well as we ought to for our own businesses. But yes, I've seen that absolutely, and I think taking a step back and actually figuring out what are you trying to achieve, and then build just little pieces makes a ton of sense. How did you get into all of this?
Oh, it has been a wild path. I started in the fitness industry, actually. So I was a competitive swimmer, and the natural progression when we retire from athletics is typically to work as a personal trainer or work in health and fitness. And so I started there trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I've tried a bunch of different careers on. I was a paralegal for a short period of time. But the one thing that stuck across all my careers, all my choices, was that I loved writing, I loved selling, and I was really good at it. And eventually, over time, after studying psychology and realizing, it's actually influencing people is what I'm really good at with words and with whatever strategies I'm using. I can influence people to take action. And finally it clicked. And so I went back and studied again and started building my business to help other businesses market. I started in health and fitness, in particular, working with those health service providers, health professionals, scaling their businesses, especially if they were working within other fitness businesses. So a lot of times gyms will hire on a naturopath or will hire on a nutritionist, and in the hopes that they'll grow their business within, but they normally have no resources. So I would help that professional grow their business within there and eventually work their way out. And then slowly but surely kept building and rolling and trying different industries, and eventually came to this place now where I work with a broad variety of industries. I still partner with a lot of agencies on some campaigns and projects here and there as a writer and strategist, but for the most part, I'm just consulting with small businesses.
It's interesting that it was psychology that sort of brought you into this, and I can think of some well, probably the most famous, well known in the marketing space is a professor named Robert Cialdini, but there's
Yeah.
another professor in Pennsylvania whose name escapes me for a moment, and it's a shame because I've had him as a guest on the show, so I'm going to get in big trouble. But who's written a lot about consumer behavior as well. So I'm curious, who did you encounter in terms of psychology that brought you into the sort of the marketing sphere?
I don't want to attribute it to a single person because I want to say I'm a reader, like many entrepreneurs and business owners. I love to read and consume content, and learning is something that I'm super passionate about. So I've read a ton of information, but really there was this pivotal moment where I was counseling a client in a therapy setting, and she was a business owner, really struggling, overwhelmed. And it was that moment where I was like, I could clearly see what was missing and what needed to happen. And it finally clicked that, oh, I shouldn't be working with you as a therapist. I should be working with you as a business consultant. And then I went down the rabbit hole, and I've read every author I could possibly get my fingers on, and you can probably see the stack of books
Yep.
behind me as well. But it was that moment where I finally realized, like, oh, I'm with the right people, but in the wrong setting.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that so much because so many. By the way, it's Michael Solomon. It just popped
Ah,
into my
yes.
head, so thank you, thank you for giving me a moment to. Um, but so many marketers out there don't understand the importance of human psychology and human behavior being a central piece of the way that marketing ought to operate, right? It's a function of making the connection between the way somebody is thinking internally and a decision that they then subsequently will make to move closer to or further away from a business or an offer. And so starting with psychology it's a really great place to start, and that realization that, oh, I can use this to help people, but I'm just focusing on the wrong part of it. That's really cool.
I'm really fortunate that I've been able to try so many different careers. I think in the past, I used to be a little bit ashamed of it because I felt like people would see me as jumping around or not committing to anything. But the truth is, I gained so much value and experience in being in all of these different careers and places because it slowly but surely helped me acquire a really broad range of skills that all come together now. Whether it's a psychology, working with clients one on one, working in health and fitness, learning about developing really strong relationships has been pivotal. And if business owners, agency owners can really focus on one thing, it's how do I build stronger bonds and relationships with my clients and prospective clients.
So speaking of building stronger bonds and relationships have to start somewhere.
Yes.
And we're going to give listeners the opportunity to start a relationship with you by visiting your website. I'm curious what they're going to encounter when they head over there.
Hopefully, they get a real sense of who I am. When I write for myself, I am true to my character. I am an outgoing extrovert. I'm a lot of fun to work with. I do not have a filter. But it's a lot of fun, and so there's a lot of sass, and my personality comes out in everything that I do, and I think that's something that I've worked really hard to learn how to do, both for myself and for other businesses. But it makes sure that the people that come to work with me, they know me before they know me.
Yeah, I like that, and you do a really good job both visually, and through the language that you use on the site. In fact, the sites the URL itself is, sort of a little clever. It's heymickeyAnderson.com, right?
Just
We'll
like the
we'll make sure
song.
we'll make sure to have a link to that, but also, and this is something that you and I discussed briefly before we hit record, right? There's a picture of you drinking a glass of wine. That's an interest of mine, so we talked about it. There's a picture of you sort of cleverly, I don't even know what you're doing in this picture, but I think you know which one I'm referring to, with a book on your head, sort of
Yep.
shrugging, going, "What?" And so, yeah, the personality comes across really, really well, and it's going to, and I think that's really intentional, I hope,
Yep.
and effective at drawing some people closer and getting some people to go, "She is not for me," and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I learned this as a kid really early on. You can't please everyone. And having tons of friends isn't necessarily going to help you. Having a few really great friends and knowing who your people are will serve you because you'll have tighter connections and stronger bonds, and people will think of you, right? I'm not here to please everyone or work with everyone. My people know who my people are. I know who my people are, and we just naturally connect.
Well, that's great, and I highly recommend, if you want to find out if you're one of Mickey's people or not, head on over to heymickeyAnderson.com. It will be instructive, if nothing else. So, Mickey, thank you so much for hanging out and chatting with me.
Thank you so much, David. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, folks, this has been More Perfect Marketing. If you know somebody who could benefit from listening to this conversation, and it was a fun conversation, please share it with them. And in the meantime, I will look forward to seeing you back here again on the next episode of More Perfect Marketing. Take care.